Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise requesting your support in this amendment. I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to be very sober, and as a matter of fact, as I can, I have a hard time controlling myself in this conversation. I'm really shocked that the fulcrum that we're going to use to advance this conversation is a budget rather than a solid plan to move forward with figuring out how we're better going to support the disabled community in Washington State. I think between you and me, we can agree that there's got to be a better way to support this community in Washington State, and we should establish that. And we shouldn't be doing that through a budget debated at 9:30 at night that absolutely kneecaps it. Mr. Speaker, the disability community is not a monolith. We heard amazing testimony in the Early Learning Committee from folks who have tremendous disabilities. But I want to throw something at you, Mr. Speaker, that the differences between the most abled and the least abled in the disability community are greater than the differences between you and me and Usain Bolt. Because through some amount of training, maybe we can be really good runners. Through no amount of training can somebody bridge the gap between the least abled and most abled in the disability community. I find it really difficult to describe what I'm about to describe because if you haven't lived through it, it's hard to itemize it. But I'd like permission to read and refer to my notes, Mr. Speaker.
If it relates to the amendment, please proceed.
It does relate to the amendment, and it's going to relate specifically to community-based care. I want to tell you about a young man named M. And M likes to draw. He likes to go to school. He likes to ride in the car. He likes to sing. M also rips walls from their studs. His family has had to become carpenters, plumbers, electricians. M punched a hole out of a window and had to get 10 stitches his family didn't find out because he didn't cry out for help. That's not how he thinks. He sat there in a pool of blood. Somebody heard the window break and came running. He had to have 10 nurses and doctors hold him down in the emergency room to sedate him long enough to get stitches in. His father had to handcuff himself to M for 2 weeks so the stitches weren't pulled out in the middle of the night. M smears feces. Mr. Speaker, this is uncomfortable if you've never had to clean feces out of fingernails after cleaning it off a wall, hoping to paint it up in time so people don't come by and call CPS. M has pica. He eats things he shouldn't. When the Francis Haddon Morgan Center closed down, the resident that died from pica. The caretakers at the facility let the community-based support know that the person who died had a tendency to eat things in the facility. They had special windows that locked up so that way that person couldn't eat leaves outside a window. That person died from eating laundry detergent in a community-based setting. M has a lack of caregivers and respite in the community. M has inward-facing locks in his home so he doesn't get out in the middle of the night. We heard in testimony from somebody in community-based setting, a community-based care setting, whose son is now at Rainier School. Their son got out from a community-based care setting, walked for miles in sub-zero temperatures, has frostbite on their feet, and now can't walk and is taken care of at Rainier School. M has the adolescent curiosity with adult capabilities. That includes with gas in the home, with electricity in the home, with water. Did you know autistic individuals are 160 times more likely to die of drowning? M has compulsive violence without understanding of danger. Mr. Speaker, there was a Kent State professor who ended up divorced, alone, and watching her son, who tweeted, "I wish people understood how lonely I was," shortly before she was killed by her adult autistic son. M has siblings who undergo a tremendous amount of trauma. The data says in multiple studies, siblings of people like M have elevated anxiety, depression, and psychological distress. M's family is far more likely to end up divorced, with severe depression, and M is unlikely, if his family dies, to end up in the care of caregivers are going to take care of him. In fact, in Seattle, a similar situation occurred. A 64-year-old man was a DSH has settled an $8 million lawsuit recently because a 64-year-old man lived in something they called the rat house in his neighborhood. He was an adult man with autism, IQ estimated at 60, and And DSHS was notified about him for years and did nothing. I bring this up because these are the individuals that are taken care of in, well, adult family homes perhaps, but really ultimately taken care of in our RHCs. See, adult family homes do not have the support to take care of people like him, to take care of people like the man who lived in the rat house, to take care of people like the Kent State professor's son. They don't have the ability to do that. Now, some say that Rainier School and other RHCs are institutional. They're Dickensian, I guess. I want to read a short letter, another short letter from a constituent that lives at the RHC. May I proceed?
The member is reminded to relate the comments to the funding and the amendment at hand. If it relates, please proceed.
The amendment is related to funding the RHC, and this relates to this scenario around the RHC. Mr. Speaker, does that count?
If it relates, please proceed.
Okay. Well, the mother of a young man with substantial disabilities. In the community placement he was in, he had very little interaction with others. His staff are the only ones that interacted with him most days. He spent most of his days in his room watching TV. He didn't have much of a life by our standards. Mr. Speaker, the letter continues. Rainier School, on the other hand, has many activities for people who live there. They have staff who know how to work with people with disabilities. There are many staff on the premises who can interact with the clients. There are dentists and doctors at Rainier School that know how to treat people with disabilities. They're not isolated. They're members of the community. They go to Wally's Drive-In. They go to the parks. They go to the events in town. Mr. Speaker, defunding RHCs through a budget is a recipe to kill people. That's a pregnant pause because it needs to be. The idea that we're going to defund this without a plan is going to kill people, and I can tell you why I know that. Because in Georgia, they went through a very similar scenario in 2010. They defunded state-supported care similar to RHCs. Mr. Speaker, when they did that, thousands of people ended up dying. The death rate among the population that ended up in community-based care skyrocketed. There's no such thing as community-based care that doesn't have the same challenges as an RHC. In Illinois, they closed a similar institution to Rainier and Yakima School. 26 people died over the next year. Now, they may have died for a lot of reasons. I would argue they die because there is a correlation between closing those schools or closing those facilities and the lack of care in a community-based setting. For every claim of mistreatment at an RHC, Mr. Speaker, there's an equivalent claim of mistreatment in community-based setting. This budget assumes a lot. What it doesn't assume is that if we're already failing to support RHCs with our current oversight, it doesn't tell us, because budgets don't tell us at that level of granularity, how we're going to provide that level of oversight at a plurality of institutions. How are you going to take an organization that apparently can't oversee a couple RHCs and then say they're going to oversee dozens or perhaps more community-based caregiving sites? That doesn't make sense to me, Mr. Speaker. So if I'm mad about one thing, Mr. Speaker, and I know I'm not speaking mad, but I'm really frustrated, I'm really bewildered. Why are we using the budget to talk about this? Why do we not have substantive policy? Why are we here discussing this tonight? Support this with me, Mr. Speaker. Let's figure out a plan together. Let's get a good bill together and figure out how we're going to support our DD community.
The member has 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm done. Please support this amendment.